This conference will now be recorded.
No employer wakes up in the morning states, today I'm going to put my people in harm's way, and that they don't go home safe. So those kind of things is what we want to talk about today, to make sure that you folks have the tools and some ideas that will assist you in your day-to-day operations. I'm now going to turn it over to our next presenter, Craig from Safety Tech. So I will mute myself. Thank you.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm just waiting for the screen share. There we go. Perfect. Good morning, everybody. My name is Craig with Safety Tech. First off, I just want to thank BILD Calgary for allowing us to have a discussion about Safety Tech and our free self-assessment COVID-19 Safety Tech initiative. For anyone who isn't familiar with Safety Tech, Brian did kind of mention a little bit about who we are at the beginning. I just want to take a couple slides just to discuss that, a little bit about what we do currently, where we came from, and then we can kind of get into what we're doing for the COVID-19. So Safety Tech is a workplace engagement platform, okay, and it's designed to take your company's safety program and deploy it digitally, okay, to your field staff, allowing your field staff to complete their safety documentation, submit it live and in real time to our system that takes care of the administrative process, usually involved with paper processes, and then also providing that rich data on the safety performance, allowing managers and executives to fully have a full vision and transparency into their safety program to make appropriate decision making. Okay. Myself, I was born and raised in Calgary. Okay. And both me and my co-founder are both from the construction space. Myself from commercial construction, I did work on some of the biggest projects in Calgary, kind of over my 10 years on the tools. Jobs like the Palliser, I did the first WestJet terminal. South Health Campus was one of my last ones, and the Bow Tower. Okay. My business partner is from the functional safety background for oil and gas. And today we have just over 5,000 daily active users on the system. Okay, just to kind of highlight what we do. So, but what we're doing today, so with the system that we currently have in place, obviously with everything happening with COVID-19 and our connections to the construction space and the challenges that they're currently facing, being an essential service now, we saw a really great opportunity for us to help. Okay, so what we did is essentially, when the World Health Organization issued out their self-assessment form, we saw this as an opportunity to actually create that in the system. So we essentially paused our current development cycle, okay? Kind of went to the drawing table of like, what can we do? So, you know, digitizing the form is something that we inherently do within our system, but we wanted to see about the data and what kind of data we can pull from this form that can help people, you know, track health over a period of time. Okay, so we've essentially paused our current development. We took about 2 weeks, all hands on deck to kind of help with this new initiative. Okay, and so we released our specialized COVID-19 form and dashboard on March 23rd. Okay, and a little bit about the abilities of what it can do. So just like our existing system, okay, it allows our workforce to submit that COVID-19 self-assessment form in real time. This is based on the World Health Organization, so it's just simple yes and no's. And our system, through our dashboarding, once a worker submits that, our dashboard then allows them the real-time data to understand if there's changes to the health of that individual over time, so that they can obviously make the appropriate measures of whether to, you know, send that person home or isolate, or you know, on the positive side, if things are good, then we can continue work. Okay. Obviously, the COVID-19 self-assessment form, we have it triggered as like a daily form because that makes most sense, that we can track the trend daily. But obviously, based on your company's policies and procedures, you can adhere the frequency to whatever suits your company. Okay. So the COVID-19 dashboard, So this is what the dashboard looks like for management. So as I said, as these documents come in, we have the ability to see the total amount of workers that we've invited, okay, to join. So when a supervisor signs up through Safety Tech, they get the opportunity to invite people, okay, which then sends them an email with a link to download the app, okay. So we can see how many total workers, how many pending invitations we're still waiting on. We get to see how many COVID-19 submissions have been submitted, and the actual responses as well. So the total number of responses. And then we can also see the trends of the self-assessments per day as well, okay? At the bottom of the dashboard, we can actually see the responses. So our system will actually track the responses. So we can see on the example that I have right now, we have 99 users answered no to all the health questions. There's been essentially no change here, okay? And then we do track based on how many yes questions. So essentially within the self-assessment form is, you know, are you having respiratory problems? Essentially anything that's answered yes is something that we want to manage and monitor and make sure that we understand who may be showing symptoms, who may be experiencing something, okay? And we can track all of that here as well. So by clicking on the user here, we can actually see, you know, the 21 or the 4 users, depending on the question that we filter by, okay? And we can actually see who those people are, so that we can go ahead and make those decisions on whether you know, they should not be working. Essentially, are they fit for work team based on construction being now an essential service? Okay.
Can I just pause for a sec?
Sure.
Someone has appears they've accidentally unmuted their mic, and it appears they're outside or walking. If they could please mute their microphone. I think it's someone with the name Pierre.
I'll find out who it is because somebody else is using it too.
And Craig, there's just one question that would be grateful if you could just make your presentation full screen. And we'll give it Pierre Thoreau. If Pierre Thoreau is there, it would appear that your microphone's the one that's not muted. Thank you, Pierre. Please. Anyone can get in touch with Pierre. And Craig, if you could just make your presentation full screen and we'll carry on.
Sure. Is it full screen right now?
Not quite there, Craig.
Oh, here, sorry. How about that?
That's much better, thank you.
Yeah, gotcha. So that's essentially the initiative as far as you know, fitness for work and monitoring the health of your field staff. Obviously, during this time of service, we want to make sure that every day people aren't showing symptoms and continue to be safe. Okay. So that's essentially the filling part and being able to access the COVID-19 self-assessment. And then the last thing that we also included, because there's so much rigid and content surrounding COVID-19, you know, as things are changing pretty much every hour, we want to keep people updated. So we do have a content delivery system currently in our software that we're also making available for this free COVID-19. Okay. Essentially, what this does is it allows you to upload content into our document. Okay, and push that out to all of your field staff. Okay. Our system will actually track whether they've opened it.
Just pause a moment. I will mute everyone here and then unmute you.
Sure.
Okay, Craig, you're back in action.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks. Yes, and so the content delivery system allows you to upload those any kind of documents into our system. So obviously related to COVID-19 probably, as many of the examples I have here are. And our system will actually push this out to to your workforce. And we actually track whether they've opened it, whether they've actually completed it. So we do have essentially like a sign off that, yes, I've read this, okay? As well as track the time on the document. Okay, so that we know that people are actually taking the time and absorbing this stuff. As I mentioned, because things are changing so quickly, we want to make sure that we have a delivery system to be able to send out all this this content based on COVID-19. Okay, so perfect. So that wraps up kind of my section. I really appreciate the opportunity. In case anyone's wondering, this is a free offering. Okay, I do believe the link will be sent out to everyone after. It's also on the slide deck here. And you can access it from our website as well at safetytech.io. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. I'm going to throw it back to you, Ernest.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Excellent information. It's so important, and we're going to talk about that, the screening of our workers and subcontractors. That is so important. So while there's tremendous publications on what to do, what we wanted to share with you is some specifics that are very important that are happening in the field, and I wanted to share that with you because I think those are practical applications that can be useful for everyone to take a look at if that pertains to their particular site, their particular organization. So the first thing, of course, is absolutely the screening of workers, subcontractors, and anyone who's coming on site. That checklist is so important. That allows us to give an opportunity, and I'll talk about a little bit of culture on how to manage that, because the culture is so crucial that people have a two-way conversation that are honest. They are concerned about their livelihoods, and so we want to make sure that we have that available. So hazard assessments.
We lost
very
Aaron.
important. Now, we've all most likely have got COVID-19, safe work practice, safe job procedures. We've done job hazard analysis. We've done the homework in order to give the best information, and that should be implemented. And with the hazard assessments, we need to make sure we've got the site conditions. We need to understand what is operating, what's going on, that we as either employers or prime contractors can do that social distancing, can create those areas to make sure that people are working separated as much as possible under the circumstances with the construction and such requirements. So daily worker checklist is important. Hazard assessments, individual, even electronic, and so appreciate what Craig showed us today, this morning. Those kind of things are innovations that are going to work well into the future. Make sure that there are no group gatherings. Your supervision has to be done as well, and this is where electronic information sharing can be very effective. I know that we've stated in previous times that cell phones are not allowed by workers, but in this case, that could be an extremely effective communication tool on site to keep that social distancing. One thing that's absolutely critical, besides the assessments, site access, is that everything is done consistently with no leeway. If that's a procedure that is to be followed by everyone, then everyone should follow it, and there should be accountability after that's been clearly educated, okay? There could be a dedicated, whether that's the superintendent, supervisor, lead hand, to continually observe as they're working to make sure that the procedures and protocol are followed. Primes and employers can collaborate with trades to schedule. A lot of organizations have already implemented the one trade per room, one trade per area, one trade per home, those kind of things. So that can be very effective. Now, the sanitization is crucial. That has to be done on a consistent basis prior to, at reasonable regular intervals, to make sure that those heavy traffic areas, such as washroom facilities, anywhere there's any kind of lunch opportunities, that those are absolutely clean. That is so crucial. Also staggered breaks so that you don't have that group gathering as well, including individuals going back to their vehicles to make sure that they are distancing themselves from those group gatherings. Appreciative approach for call-ins for self-isolation. A positive support when they take the onus, and this is real, of course, that they feel that they're compromised and do not want to compromise your site. That is part of that cultural support we need to give out. And then if a person is exhibiting symptoms when they come to site, then do you have a protocol? What's your process in place to make sure that they are turned away, but in a very respectful manner, that the process is dealt with, but that the person is not insultant? Because we have heard of bullying and harassment and that kind of stuff, pressure to go to work, so we don't want that as well. And everyone can be part of sanitization. It doesn't mean you have to be dedicated. Right to refuse, I'll talk about that a little bit more. A lot of companies and organizations are going to electronic orientations, including sign in and sign out by text, to recognize there is a minimization of paperwork transfer, as that could transmit COVID-19. What else? The reminders with signage and just having conversation not to touch your face, keep your hands in your pockets, right? And also,
we still on here, or what's going on?
Okay. Also, that people who know each other from organizations, trades, that they continue to work together and not introduce new people if that's possible. Hiring process is difficult. As you can understand, you may be bringing in someone you do not know, and they may not know that they've actually attracted or are infected. And so those are difficult processes to deal with. And because of the absenteeisms, right, it's going to be difficult for that production. Now, there's lots of processes where organizations are now working on electronic or virtual reality. One of the challenges we can see out there is show homes where the public comes into those spaces. And a lot of organizations are now doing it by appointment only, disinfecting after each process, and those kind of things are now becoming the new norm. And so we'll have this information available to you, some of these specifics. If you want to have that, we'll make that available to you. And of course, we still want to make sure that we're compliant with legislation as well. There was a blurb put out that OH&S is looking at all of this from a employer responsibility to keep their workers safe, as the Act Part 1, Section 3, Subsection 1, and also Code Part 2, Section 7 regarding hazard assessments. They're still doing investigations. Should you have an incident that's required, don't forget your reportable incidents. Make sure that the prime contractor is notified if that is a subcontractor, and also the potential serious incident reporting is still required. That hasn't changed. Now, controls, the hierarchy of controls. There have been instances where there's been suspected COVID-19 exposure to specific sites, especially in multifamily and high-rise and dense work sites. And they have shut down until the verification whether or not the person or persons who were infected were actually did have COVID-19. So of course, from an engineering point of view, can we create separate areas? Can we cordon off? Can we only put one trade specifically into one specific area? Those are the kind of things one needs to look at. And then of course, from an administrative point of view, what kind of new training do we need to put in for COVID-19 procedures, policies, expected results, those kind of things. There's lots of good information out there. One of the things I've really found so far, and Craig again exemplifies that there's a lot of sharing going on during this very difficult time. And of course, we need to ensure that all of our employees, subcontractors, do have PPE, have the appropriate gloves, masks, sanitizing equipment, and that's followed up with or use a combination of those controls. The site and the conditions and what's happening on the job site will determine what kind of controls are going to be put into place. So what do our employees and subcontractors need? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, it's leadership. What example are we setting? Are we walking the talk, or are we telling people what to do and not following it ourselves? That is the #1 priority, that we as an industry lead by example, set the example, and be the torch that others may follow. That is so, so important. Because if we don't lead by example, how can we expect our employees or our subcontractors to follow our standards? And so that is a very, very important. We need to set out clear expectations. What is the expected behavior? How do we want those individuals to conduct themselves at site? What kind of communication? What kind of effort and such? We need to train them. And that might have to be done more than once. Just to give them an orientation on COVID-19 may not be enough. It may need a small toolbox meeting, a text reminder, an email, just repetition that's positive in order to keep it to the forefront. Especially we're so prone to touch our face, our hands, and those kind of things. Social distancing, sanitization. So those things need to be supported completely. And again, that's where that leadership comes in. And then, of course, the last point here is the accountability, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be consistent. We need to be fair, but we need to be absolute. As I've seen things on the news all over the world, I believe that Canada is showing leadership in trying to mitigate this curve, flatten the curve. And we are part of that. And the accountability is very, very important in this. Now, what are some of the stressors for employer subcontractors? Culture. What kind of culture do we have? And this is at the bottom, bullying and harassment. Have people being harassed to perform when they don't feel 100% sure? I'm not making any statement. I'm just putting it out there because we need to have a culture of positive support, that when workers refuse that unsafe work because they are not feeling well, whether physically or emotionally, which is just as important. Because if they're not emotionally in the game, they could not only be a risk to themselves, but to the work site. And that's where that social support comes in. Are we asking the question, how are you doing today? Not just for the health aspect physically, but from an emotional point of view. How are you doing today? How's your family? How's your extended family? Because they, workers all over, and people who are laid off at the moment because they are not deemed essential services, are really concerned about their economic security. Yes, the government has given social assistance, and that is pivotal. It is leading the world, I believe. There's lots of good measures both for employers, employees, and subcontractors to receive that economic support should they come down with the COVID-19 illness. And that is very, very important. And again, the last one, bullying and harassment. So I had my research specialist do a little bit of research, spend some hours to see what we're looking or could be looking at from a health and safety point of view. The only thing that we really could go back to was the 1918 Spanish flu. As you can appreciate, we are in a different time. At that time, there was no communication opportunity, but the pandemic at that time was extremely, extremely weak. The COVID-19 is not just a 14-day isolation. We're probably looking anywhere to 2 to 18 months with the information that's being shared on all of our newscasts of that curve, the apex, and there could be, as they're surmounting that process, a reoccurrence 4 to 6 months approximately. And again, these are approximate. And to get a proper vaccine could take 18 months. So what is that going to do for our economic situation? I'm not an economist, but I can see that it's going to be some very difficult times ahead in order to meet the requirement of our contracts, our employers' well-being, employees, subcontractors' commitments, and that is the unknown. So one of the things that we are doing as an organization, we are continuing to be flexible in our approach to health and safety. We're training, cross-training. We are looking at electronic opportunities in order to get the message out and to ensure that the companies that move forward have the support from industry so that we can rebuild this great nation called Canada. And so in closing, I would like to say, when we are clear, when we continue to be positive in our communication, we can enhance that cohesion and compliance to the COVID-19 pandemic for the purpose of prevention to get, as always, everyone home safe every night. Thank you very much for giving me your time. It's an absolute privilege. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ernest. Appreciate you taking the time to do that, and thanks to you, Craig, as well. Now, if I could get both of you to stand by, I'm going to make Brenda Desjardins the presenter, and after Brenda's finished her presentation, we will have some questions. And just a quick introduction of Brenda. Brenda is the Director of Building Services with the City of Calgary. Brenda is responsible for supporting both intake and field operations for building safety for the City of Calgary. And she's going to tell us about a new remote inspection process that is being introduced this week. Brenda, I'm going to make you the presenter now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. And thanks, Ernest. That was a great presentation that you did. I really appreciated it. So thanks for having me. I'm very appreciative to have this opportunity to present to you guys this morning. And I have to say, last week, the City of Calgary, we did a lot of work focusing on supporting construction as an essential service. So we partnered with BILD, with the Calgary Construction Society, with the Alberta Construction Association, to really have a clear message going forward that construction is an essential service. And I can't enforce more of what Ernest said, that it's critically important that we maintain safety at every single site, because it'll just take a couple bad apples in the media where construction is reported as being unsafe for us to lose the battle of keeping construction as an essential service. So I'm really reinforcing with you guys to take seriously what Ernest and the previous presenter shared with you, so that we can all keep this industry going. Before I get going, though, I should mention that I have Adam Gagne with me. He is the manager of building safety, so he might be responding to some questions as we go on. But just to give you an idea of what we've done at the City of Calgary over the last couple of weeks, we've moved our operations remotely, like most operations throughout the city and the country, moving our call center services to support remote calls. We've closed our front counter, so you can no longer come into the city and interact with someone face-to-face. You can drop off drawings or plans there that we will pick up and review. But the impact that we've had is that we typically would receive about 500 visits a week at the front counter, and that volume has moved online. So we have a great online service, so we're able to still offer the same service, but online. So we've seen our volume switch from 500 visits at the front counter a week approximately down to about 10 a day, so about 50 a week. And we've seen that 500 additional visits move on to our online support. So we've seen our online visits go from about 550 a week to about 1,200. So we're still able to offer the service, but just in a different format. And just before I get into the details about video inspections, just to give you a little bit of idea of how, we're doing and what we're seeing out there for the last couple weeks. So we are still getting permits in, which is great news. Residential improvements have been up 10% over this time last year. So I'm looking at the last 2 weeks of March 2019 over 2020. So we've seen residential improvement projects up by 10%, single construction permits up by 1%. Commercial multifamily is taking a hit. We do see that down by 40%, but we're still seeing permit applications come in. So the business is still going. March, we have seen in the last 2 weeks of March this year compared to last year, revenue permit coming in about 2.5 million compared to 3 million last year. So we've seen a dip, but the industry is still going. So that's very positive. So yes, we have made some changes to how we are going to deliver our service. Oops, my slide just went blank. Sorry about that, guys. How we're going to be doing our inspections going forward. So starting today, we've launched a new service, and that is a video inspection for occupied residential.
Can I just ask you one thing? The go to meeting part of the meeting is just obscuring your slide a little bit, and I don't know if you can drag that down to the bottom.
Okay, sorry, let me close that down for you. Or drag it down anyways.
There, that.
Is that better? Sorry, I thought it was just on my screen. Sorry about that. Oh. Okay, just hang on a sec, guys. We'll get back in business here. Okay, so sorry, we'll just keep it like this for now. So commercial multifamily, as I said, we are continuing inspections for commercial multifamily. We support that construction is an essential service, and we want to support you by having our inspectors out in the field doing inspections, keeping business going. And so again, going back to those safety measures, our inspectors are empowered if they get to a site and they feel like the safety is not in place. So the COVID-19 measurements are not in place. They're empowered to walk away from that inspection and reschedule it. And so please make sure when we have inspectors coming, we have social distancing, even if you can suggest to your team that, maybe they take a coffee break or they step off the floor while the inspector is there. It will just help make the inspector feel that much more secure and that much more confident in continuing this service for you. For occupied residential inspections, we are continuing. However, we have a new way of doing our inspections. So we are now offering video inspections. So this is a new service that we're offering. Today is really the first day that we're kicking it off. So as you can imagine, this is a service that might have taken us a year in normal circumstances to launch, to get the bugs out, to make sure our team was ready. But because of the situation we're in and the safety of our team, we've launched this over the last couple of weeks. So we are going to be working bugs out as we go, but we feel confident that, the team is up for it, that we're ready for it. So the inspections will take place. The 311, when the customers call in through 311, the 311 operator will inform them that they possibly might be getting a video inspection and send them the instructions on how to download the app. The inspector then, during the inspection time, will phone the customer, and if they don't have the app downloaded, they will walk them through how to download the app and then how to perform a video inspection. We expect it to be, bugs as we go, working it out, but we've already completed about 20 of these in the field and they've gone very well. So we're very optimistic about how this will go. We will not, if we have to defer an inspection because we can't complete the video inspection, we will defer it until such time a physical inspection is done. Now, we know there will be times that, we just absolutely have to get in that home and do that inspection. And in that case, we do have PPE that we can suit up our inspectors with and send them in. So we will be monitoring each permit individually and separately to make sure that it's still, moving forward, we will not be canceling any permits. We will just be deferring them at this time. So terms of the permit will not be impacted. There are situations that we feel are outside the norm that we will be doing more physical inspections if we can't do the video. Exterior inspections is a good example. As we come into spring, we know that, we're going to be doing decks and, outdoor garages. So we feel confident we can move forward with those type of inspections. Emergency situations, we will be suiting people up if necessary and making physical inspections. And final inspections for occupancy, we should say final inspections here for occupancy. And that could be in a situation where we have a secondary suite that needs occupancy in order to move forward. We will be working to do physical inspections if we have to move occupancy forward. So that's really where we're at. And of course, it's a fluid situation. Things are changing rapidly, but this is how we feel confident moving forward today. And as things change, or if they change, we will certainly keep in touch with you. But, I really want to, before I close, just take a moment to thank the support of, this organization. BILD has been amazing in supporting our desire to keep construction moving and to really reinforce the safety measures. So thanks to everybody on this call for following safety and making safety number one.
Thank you, Brenda. We really appreciate that you would take time out today to speak to us and share all that the city of Calgary is doing to help us move ahead. We appreciate the support to help maintain construction as an essential business. And we're very pleased with the partnership and collaboration that we've gotten from you and everyone else in the city. And we'd be grateful if you would take kind remarks back to everyone there with our thanks. So we're now at the point in time where we can entertain questions. And again, I would just remind everyone that the best way to do that, and I'll do my best to navigate through the chat room here. And to the extent I miss a question that you might have, we'll do our best to circle back and post them on our website. You should be able to see the chat icon up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And so we'll work through it that way. I will also point out, if you're talking to any of your colleagues today, it's pretty clear that we are beyond oversubscribed for this. And I'm pretty sure we will be running another session here. We'll just have to find time where our speakers can join us once again. So with that, I am going to do my best to walk through the questions here. And so I think this one will go to you, Ernest. It's from Don Boswell. What are you identifying as the hazards on the FLHA?
So a couple of things we need to look at is what is the site conditions? Is it a congested site? How many trades are there? Is there a process of policy on that site regarding COVID-19 procedures? And those kind of things should all be written on, or just an activation on your field level risk assessment or whatever you call it, to make sure that that is accentuated every day. And so that would be prime specific. There's a lot of the prime contractors are coming out with actual site assessments and worker assessments as well. I just saw one from one of our large ones that just sent one out yesterday that is very detailed, and those are the kind of things that we want on those assessments, so that everybody is aware of that on a daily, if not multi times through the day, just to keep that in the forefront.
Thanks, Ernest. I think this next one is for you as well, and it's from Kino Tremblay at Jamin. And Kino, I might not get this perfect here, but I think the gist of your question is there's a shortage of sanitization materials for Portapotties or portable toilets, and I think you're looking for an understanding of how best people can comply with those sanitization requirements and make sure they're COVID-19 safe. And if I didn't capture that correctly, Kino, if you would just resend it. And I think you're also looking for everyone's thoughts
Yes.
on that. And what I would suggest, anyone who has some other thoughts, just put them in the chat room. So Ernest, do you want to take a crack at that?
Yes, anything that's got any kind of bleach derivative is going to kill the virus, right? I was just reading the chat here that spray 9, someone was talking about, I believe Donald Boswell, spray 9, a potential replacement for those sanitizers. We are actually using a regular household product in case of a commercial sanitizer. There are many products that will do that. So one of the things that I would also recommend that everyone is made aware and that they could be and should be part of that process. So if a person goes to the porta potty, they should sanitize after they leave. I think that should be part of our procedures as well.
Thanks, Ernest. There's another question here, and it doesn't have a name attached to it, but and the answer may be quite apparent, but I think it's worth addressing. How many people can crowd into a company truck?
Well, we know the social distancing is 6 feet, is it not? Isn't that
So
what
the answer then is 1.
I'm not saying anything regarding that. I just know that we are expected to social distance 6 feet. So there's going to be some challenges with transportation, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a number of porta potty questions, and I think you've gotten to them. I think Ken with Excel, you've asked about cleaning materials for porta potties and just flag the notion of that they're a hot commodity now, perhaps hotter than copper was prior to the crisis, and need to lock them away. And I think, Ernest, you've given some good suggestions about bleach. And also, I think the other one that's not as commonly known, but actually good washing with soap and water is as effective as any hand sanitizers. So
can I add something here, please?
Go ahead, Ernest.
Remember, all of our workers and subcontractors will be going home after the shift. They should have some form of being able to separate their environment as they're walking off the job site, so they can compartmentalize that and not bring that internally. Because one of the things we're doing in our home is anything that comes into the house gets disinfected, because we do not know what it's been exposed to. And so not only is that a construction issue, but it's also a social issue. So I would recommend that some form of that minimizing the opportunity for community transmission, because the last thing we'll want to do is infect our dear ones, correct?
Correct. One from Jennifer. I'm probably going to do a bad job on the last name. Maher, with DVS drywall. How do we control the sanitization of the trailer itself? It could become a breeding ground. Maybe just a quick comment on that, Ernest.
Again, this is where we involve everyone. If they're going for breaks, stagger the breaks, separate, keep a minimum number that you're comfortable with, so that 6 feet can be distanced, and then get them to sanitize their area that they've touched. We need to make the group responsible to look after themselves. I mean, I think that can assist in keeping that sanitized, correct?
Correct. Got a question here from West Creek as to the position of BILD and other builders on whether show homes should be allowed to be open. So we're working, I think this is an issue that we need to make sure is addressed. The responsibilities for the safe work site is the same for a show home as they are for any other work site. A number of the builders that are part of the BILD team are going to either video walkthroughs similar to the inspection process that the City of Calgary has done, or strictly by appointment only, where it's absolutely available to maintain social distancing, and that the show home can be wiped down and appropriate protocols put in place to make sure that everyone stays safe. But again, at the end of the day here, the responsibility lies with the owner to make sure whatever the task is, whether it be framing a house, putting drywall up, or showing a home, it can be done safely. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Ernest?
Yes, one of the things with the sanitizers, and I see Purdy Harkonnen, make sure that you understand what you're dealing with, safety data sheets. If we're bringing stuff that we haven't done before or not used before, that the safety data sheets are made available even for consumer products of some sorts to make sure that we can educate our workers what they do.
Yeah. Can we mute the microphones again, please? Thank you.
So safety data sheets, this is where WHMIS now becomes a reality that makes absolute sense.
Thank you, Ernest. There's a comment about Chem Facts as a cleaner. And then the next question is from Don, or it's not from Don Boswell. I think it's answered by Don Boswell. Was what's the requirement for the makeup of cleaners? And it just jumped on my screen there. I think it's 60% ethanol or 70% isopropanol from Spencer Halleck. Is there anyone else that has something to add on that? I think that's a piece that we can post on the BILD website. Okay, I'm just going to turn it over to Adam from the city. Adam, you wanted to chime in, and if you're, just let me find you here, and I'll turn on your mic. I had you there a moment ago. My screen, unfortunately, is jumping around. There you are, Adam. You're on. Adam, you had something to add.
Hi, yes, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for having us. I am the current acting manager of Building Safety Services at the City of Calgary. I just want to add a few items to Brenda's presentation there. So the platform we are using is Google Duo. Due to privacy reasons, we have to do video inspections on Google Duo. So if you are going to require a video inspection, please ensure that you download Google Duo ahead of time. I would also, I can't stress enough, safety is very important. So to help us stop the spread of COVID-19 and maintain safety at all times, please ensure that the work inspection areas are clear of workers to maintain social distancing when on-site inspections are required. And I'd like to address another point that everybody's concerned about, like money and finances at these days. I just want to assure you that the terms of permits will not be impacted. We are currently suspending the pre-expiry permitting process, so that your permit will not expire. So don't feel the need to rush and get some inspections done if you don't need to. But we will enable the expiry process when we return back to the new normal, whatever that may look like. But for the time being, the pre-expiry process will be suspended. That's all I have to add at this time. So if there are any more questions, please let me know. Thank you.
So I think there's a quick one here, Adam. It says if there are workers on the site when an inspector arrives, will they give the trades an opportunity to leave before he decides the inspection is unsafe?
Yes, absolutely. We're here to work with you. Just please work with the inspector, and he can wait till the area is clear and the areas leading to the inspection site are clear until so you guys can have non-essential staff leave the area at that time.
Thank you, Adam. It appears we're starting to Oh, there we got another question there from Jennifer of DVS Drywall. Ernest, how do you suggest we get workers on board that believe COVID has been blown out of proportion?
I would recommend that you show them the numbers. As I checked this morning, because I did my homework, right now the world is looking at around a 4.7 to 4.9 fatality rate. There's over 800,000 cases. These are hard facts. This is a pandemic. The tragic happenstances that are happening in Italy, in Spain, and now what's happening in the States. I don't think this is overblown, and we need to just educate. And if they don't think that then we need to hold them accountable. This is the way we're going to operate on our job site. If you choose not to, then you have to leave. That's where that accountability is, right? And that's so crucial. Education, support, and accountability. Those are the three things that we can work with to make sure that everyone has got the right information. I hope that helps.
Okay, I think Don Bradshaw is trying to get a question for Adam. And Don, if you would just kindly, there we go. Are your inspections going into occupied homes, Adam?
Currently, yes. If social distancing, if all COVID-19 measures can be maintained, yes. But we're winding that down, and we're going to video inspections. We are currently prepared to go to video inspections, and this is an ever-changing situation. So I expect right away we will not be going into occupied homes anymore, just unoccupied construction sites.
Thanks for that clarification, Adam. I think we have a question here from Mohammed Rahman. I hope I pronounced that correctly. How many sites are closed due to COVID-19 so far? And Mohammed, I would, unless there's someone else that can plug into the chat, I'm not sure we have that information right now, but I would reinforce that the ability to stay open relies on being able to implement COVID-19 safe work practices and procedures, including the ones that Ernest and Craig have suggested today. And I don't know, Ernest and Craig, if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
The biggest thing is to err on the side of caution. I know that might impact production. I totally understand it, but if there's any kind of suspect situation where someone has been coming to work exposed, that gets confirmed as soon as possible. And you might want to consider then to shut that site down until the site's disinfected and then reopen and not let those individuals back up. But that's so important. So just to dovetail with what you just said, Brian.
Thanks, Ernest. Craig, anything from you?
Nope, that all kind of makes sense. It's all along the same lines. It's like, yeah, if we can just get ahead of, pre-screening and trying to check on the health and safety of people before, then that should keep sites open, right?
Okay, thanks. Adam, did you want to weigh in on that question as well?
Yes. We would like to know if you've completely closed down a construction site and there's no one there. We would like to know that. We are tracking this. Okay, so if you do close the site down, can you please get in touch with us and let us know that. I can provide my email address, and you can contact me directly on that one. Thank you.
Adam, maybe you would be kind enough just to punch your email address into the chat for everyone to see, and that would at least provide it for those still hanging on the call. And also, we, to the extent you're agreeable, Adam, we'd be happy to post it on the BILD website. Ernest, I think this is a question for you and maybe also for Craig. It's a question, can we speak to workers' right to refuse unsafe work? And I think a chunk of your presentation talked about the need to make sure work is safe, but maybe you just want to weigh in on that, Ernest.
So a couple of things. This is where we're talking about culture, but that's cooperation. You may have seen on the news where a McDonald's worker actually stated to their employer that they felt that they were exposed to COVID-19, and that was a false. And the organization had to shut the place down, and that is not acceptable either. It's 2 points. First of all, if a worker has the COVID-19 and he or she suspects that, I want to be all inclusive here, and we need to honor that, and we need to take that at face value, because it's better to err on the side of caution. It is enshrined in OH&S legislation, the right to refuse, right to know, and right to participate. There are some ramifications if we do not do that correctly, because that is also then, if we go against that, that could be the bullying and harassment protocol, which also we could be held accountable. The biggest thing we want is a cooperative effort where workers are educated and understand that we want them to come to work. We want them to do it in a manner that is in a safe way, but that they have the opportunity that if they feel that they've been compromised by this COVID, that you support them. But that's a cooperative two-way street, and that takes trust, and that takes working together. But yeah, it's a very difficult issue, as some have used it in the past little while to minimize their work. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Ernest. Ryan Hatson is asking, how long must a site be shut down if an employee working on that site tests positive?
I am not an industrial hygienist, and I don't have that answer, and I wouldn't want it. You should not work or not open it until all have been notified that could have been exposed, that they have an opportunity to get. We've had that situation. We've contacted some of that through this process. So everyone needs to be made aware, and then the site needs to be disinfected if that's the case, and not reopened until that happens. But this is where the Government of Alberta pamphlet would really assist you. I think there's great information on that as well. Yeah, as per Alberta Health guidelines, absolutely, totally concur.
Thanks. Adam, you wanted to talk a little bit more about the expiry process. Why don't you weigh in on that, Adam?
Yeah, there was a question here from Donna Dwyer about the expiry process, asking what it is. So as per the Alberta permit regulation, there are terms of all permits, and they do not remain forever in play. They do expire at some point. And it can vary from permit to permit. So at this time that we are not expiring any permits. I just want to make that clear. To help the construction industry, we are not expiring any permits. So you don't have to worry about that process until we return to our new normal.
Thanks, Adam. See a comment from Spencer there about the virus, and I think that reinforces the need for disinfection. Just wondering if there's any more questions to come in the chat. I'm not seeing anything coming up. I will say this, and I believe I put it in the chat, that we've had a fantastic turnout this morning, and we still have over 190 people still connected to the call. So that's rather impressive. For those of your colleagues who weren't able to connect, then we'll certainly look to schedule another one of these sessions. And as I said, as soon as we're able, we'll be putting the presentations and the recording up on the BILD website. There are one more question here. There are times when a worker has normal seasonal flu and just for safety's sake is sent home 14 days, how to justify. Ernest, you can take a crack at that, but I think it's out of an abundance of caution that we do that.
Remember, there's a tremendous stress that goes with that with people. My GM is at home with a cough, and he doesn't know, and you don't get tested until you're actually sick. So to err on the side of caution is the justification, absolutely. It is better to be safe, and have 2 people not working than have 1 working that is COVID positive. And what does that do to the process? That will slow you down so much more dependent on how many people you have on site. Yeah, there's going to be times that that's going to be difficult to justify, but to err on the side of caution in this particular case, there is just no other alternative.
So there's a question from Doug at DS Martyr. If site is open air and social distance can be maintained, can site meeting proceed with minimal numbers? Ernest, you can take a crack at that, and then there's some stuff that BILD has seen in terms of how to do those things as well. There's some suggestions. So Ernest,
any meeting should have the open air, maybe PPE, and that you can have that social distancing. Then I believe there's now specific numbers, right? How many can actually gather as per the government standards? It is decreasing at all times, so we need to be aware of that. Yes, and if we can social distance, then we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. So you need to determine, is that the safe way? Can you do it electronically? That could be also an opportunity to minimize that exposure. And if it's that on one-on-one, then that can happen too. Stagger the meetings with trades, stagger the meeting with workers if that's working. So do whatever you can to minimize those distances or those opportunities of that community transmission.
Thanks, Ernest. Yeah, that's what we've seen from the literature that we're sharing on the BILD website is as much as possible, try to do it electronically in terms of social distancing. Okay, I'm gonna kind of give it the last call for questions here because it seems we're running out a little bit of steam and we're starting to have people move on to the other things they have to do today. So I think we're at a close here for today. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Really appreciate everything that you've done. We really are grateful to everyone.